Imagine you are paying a consultant by the hour. Every meeting they walk in, and you spend the first 30 minutes replaying everything you discussed in the last 10 sessions. You are paying full rate for a recap they should already know. That is exactly what happens when you send your full conversation history to an LLM on every single call. Today, we fix that. Welcome back to the AI cost optimization series on human mimics. I am Fatih Farouk, and in this episode, we cover one of the most powerful input side techniques you can apply to any AI chatbot or assistant you build: summarizing old conversation history. Not deleting it like we did in episode 6 with a sliding window, compressing it, keeping the meaning, removing the tokens. In the last episode, we used a sliding window. We kept on these last end messages and dropped everything older. Simple, effective, but it has a weakness. When you drop old messages, you also drop the context inside them. If a user told your assistant their name, their goal, or a key decision in message 3, and your window only keeps the last 5, that information is gone. Your assistant forgets. The user has to repeat themselves. The experience breaks. This is the core tension in conversational AI. More history equals better context equals higher cost. Less history equals lower cost equals forgotten context. Summarization is how we escape this tension. We keep the meaning of the old conversation, just encoded in far fewer tokens. Here is the idea in 3 steps. Step 1. Your conversation grows. The user and assistant exchange messages. After a certain number of turns, the history gets long. Step 2. You trigger a summary. Instead of sending all those old messages on the next call, you ask the LLM in a separate API call to summarize what happened so far. One paragraph, key facts, decisions made, user preferences mentioned. Step 3. You replace the history. From this point forward, your conversation history looks like this. One summary message at the top, compressing everything old. Then only the most recent exchanges. The LLM still has full context, but you are sending a fraction of the tokens before summarization. Let's say 10 messages, 800 input tokens. After summarization, one summary plus 2 recent messages, maybe 180 input tokens. That is a 77% reduction in input tokens while keeping the context alive. Let us run the numbers at scale. We are building a customer support chatbot. Each user has a session, on average 12 messages back and forth before they resolve their issue. Without summarization, we send the growing full history on every turn. By message 12, that is roughly 1,200 input tokens per call. With summarization, we summarize after message 6. The rest of the session uses one summary, approximately 150 tokens, plus last 2 messages, approximately 200 tokens, equals approximately 350 input tokens per call. That is a 70% reduction in input tokens for the second half of every session. Now scale that to 1 million sessions per month. At Claude Haiku 3.5 pricing, $0.80 per million input tokens. Without optimization, roughly $960 per month in input costs for those sessions. With summarization, roughly $288 per month. You save $672 every month from one technique. And remember, this is input tokens only. The output cost ratio is 5 times higher. So keeping your inputs lean compounds across your entire bill. Before you ship this in production, here are 3 things to keep in mind. 1. Summary quality matters. A bad summary loses important details. You want to give the summarizer model a precise prompt. Tell it exactly what to preserve: username, intent, key constraints, decisions made. Test your summary prompt carefully. 2. The summarization call costs tokens too. To summarize 800 tokens of history, you make an API call that might consume 800 input plus 150 output tokens. That cost is real, but it is a one-time cost that saves you on every future turn. The math almost always works in your favor after 2 or 3 turns. 3. Frequency is a tuning parameter. Summarize too early, you lose detail. Summarize too late, you have already paid for the long history. A common pattern: summarize after every 6 to 10 messages and keep the last 2 to 3 turns intact so the model has immediate context. Hello. This code part will show how to make summarization for the conversation history. First, we start with an example of conversation history from between the user query and the model response. These message lengths are 27 messages, and they define summarize functions that take the message and they define with it instructions. You also define these instructions to make summarization for their conversation history. And then I pass a message for these functions. The return of this function will be a summarization for the conversation history. So this is a summarization. For that 27, for all this conversation history that have a length of 27 lines. Then define triggering messages for triggering the summarization. That means you need to make summarization if the message conversation history exceeds some length. Here I put 6 as an example. Then here I make the execution of the code, how the executions I make function should summarize the code. I send conversation history to summarize history. This return a summarize and store there. Then here I take last 2 message for the conversation history and save the recently message. Finally, I send the summarize and the recent message to the lean underscore history. When I make print to the lean underscore history here, I found the summarization for the conversation history plus last 2 message for the most recent. So if I make a token comparison between without summarize and with summarize, I will find the reduction of token between before summarization tools 353 and after summarization became 186. So this method used token reduction by summarization old conversation history with recently 2 message. If I make comparison based on the cost, I found here for before summarization, this number of token, and after summarization, and this is after summarization. Let us zoom out. We are in layer 2, input control. So far in this layer, technique 3 was sliding window, cut old messages entirely. Technique 4 today is summarize old history, compress them instead. Coming up in technique 5, prompt compression, where we shrink not just history, but the prompts themselves, using AI to remove redundant words without losing meaning. If the sliding window is a knife, cutting old messages out, then summarization is a press, compressing them down, and prompt compression is a microscope, finding waste inside every sentence. Together, these 3 techniques can reduce your input token bill by 60 to 80%. Let us recap what we covered today. Long conversation histories are expensive because every message in your history is resent as input tokens on every single API call. Summarization breaks that compounding cost by replacing old messages with a single compressed summary, preserving context while slashing token count. At scale, this can save hundreds or thousands of dollars per month without your users noticing anything. If this episode gave you a new way to think about AI cost, leave a like. It helps the channel reach more engineers who are building with LLMs. Subscribe to Human Mimics for the full series. We are going layer by layer through every cost optimization technique that matters. And I will see you in episode 8, Prompt Compression.